How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, America. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation, all the way to Alaska. We're working on Hawaii, up the coast of Maine and down to Miami, Florida. 877-973-7425 is the number, but I'm not taking your phone calls anytime soon. We got a lot to talk about, starting with the President of the United States, who is coming to the defense of the Iranian people. This happened just a short time ago. This is the tweet from the President of the United States. Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on the way. MEGA. President Donald J. Trump, MEGA, make Iran great again. Help is on the way. Now, the backstory here is pretty straightforward. The Wall Street Journal said the president wanted to engage in military action against Iran, in part because back during the Arab Spring, Barack Obama gave a lot of lip service to people in the Arab world rising up, but he ignored the Iranians. He wanted to deal with Iran. And the Iranian people took to the streets thinking President Obama might help them, and he turned his back on them and did nothing. And Donald Trump does not want to be a Barack Obama. Donald Trump, in fact, said he wanted to find a way to help the Iranian people. And then the Wall Street Journal reports that J.D. Vance wanted to go the route of Barack Obama and do some sort of peace deal with the Iranian Ayatollahs and deal with the weapons and do a nuclear deal. It was very much the Barack Obama plan. Now, you should know people close to Vance are now saying this isn't true. However, you should know the same people close to Vance who say this isn't true are the people who long favored doing an Iran deal like Barack Obama did. I don't know where the vice president is or not, but you got to note that right now there kind of is this. He's trying to keep his distance from these military excursions while also taking ownership. He's playing it very cleverly, I think, the vice president is. Rubio's star is rising. There's not really a lot he can do to keep it from rising. He's staying out of the way of Rubio right now. He's still got the inside track for the presidential nomination for 2028. It's an interesting political dynamic. The vice president, having been very much an isolationist, on the record as an isolationist, is in this odd position now, being the vice president of a man who is engaging militarily around the world. And how does he balance those two things? There are, however, a lot of people who aren't in favor of regime changes. They're not in favor of these international excursions, but they are very in favor of getting rid of the Ayatollahs. Because the Ayatollahs, everybody recognizes, are bad people. I am told, so I follow the accounts of a number of the accounts of a number of people who are in Iran or have relatives in Iran, and it is very hard to communicate with their relatives in Iran because cell service is cut, internet is cut. You got to have Starlink. They're trying to round up all the people with Starlink connections. They're trying to find them and oust them. The death toll in Iran is probably thousands, if not over 10,000 at this point. And the media, which was willing to regurgitate all of Hamas's propaganda about the death toll in Gaza, is being very careful. It's actually, there's a stunning divide between how the American media would cover the data coming out of Gaza and the data coming out of Iran. If Hamas said 3 billion babies were killed in Gaza, ABC, CBS, and NBC would run with it. The Gaza Health Ministry says 3 billion babies were killed. But you get human rights activists in Iran saying we're in the orders of magnitude of 10,000 dead, not 500 dead. And they're like, well, the government confirms 500 dead, and we can't really confirm what the human rights activists are saying, so we're not going to tell you what they say. The pictures coming out of Iran are horrific. Piles of bodies in the street, piles of bodies in body bags. The Ayatollah and the regime have given shoot-to-kill orders. There is a video, grainy as it was, so probably legit, video last night of people fleeing the Iranian regime, and they ran down an alleyway, and the regime stood at the entrance of the alleyway and just opened fire down the alley, hoping to kill as many as they could. This really stands in stark contrast, does it not, to what we see with the ICE protesters in this country? Had some Hollywood celebrity the other night at the Golden Globe stood up and said he believes we're in a dictatorship now, and he denounced Donald Trump, and to my knowledge, he's still alive today. Look, I'm kind of, I don't know, a little flummoxed by some of the rhetoric we've got coming out of people in Hollywood, and it just bothers me, people's lack of perspective on what's happening in the world right now. It's not always about us. It's not always about you. I'm noticing we've reached a Rubicon we have crossed, where for the longest time, if I dared say anything critical of the president, which I do often, I got a lot of angry emails, text messages, direct messages, comments on social media from Trump supporters that you're just never Trump. And I've noticed, particularly after the Renee Good shooting, that it is actually the people now who hate Donald Trump who are far more intolerant of other people's opinions. For example, I think it's a tragedy Renee Good was killed, but I think she brought it on herself. I think that it is reasonable for the ICE agents who have operated in self-defense, but I do also think that the president is using a very heavy hand with what he's doing. But I also think that a lot of this has to do with these sanctuary city policies. You're not experiencing these things in red states. You're only experiencing them in the blue states that have tried to protect the illegal immigrants. But in saying that, people who hate Donald Trump get very mad at you for the caveats and the carve-outs and the explanations and justifications for what they're doing. And Trump supporters at this point are far more likely to allow you to entertain criticism of the president than the people who hate Donald Trump, which tells me a lot about the mental breakdown here on the left. And what we're also seeing now is a number of people on the left coming out and siding with the Iranian regime in part because Donald Trump is against them. We have seen now in New York in particular a protest of Iranian citizens protesting the Iranian regime and white progressive women attacking them for attacking the regime, in large part because Donald Trump is critical of the regime. I don't care who you are in the United States. I don't care what your political positions are. I don't care whether you like Donald Trump or not, or voted for him or not. You should be on the side of the collapse of the Ayatollahs. The Ayatollahs spend more of their national treasury trying to kill Americans and Jews than they do feeding their own people. The Ayatollahs make the Iranian people live on $7 a day, and they spend millions a month funding terrorist organizations around the world. The Iranian regime has set up shop in Venezuela making weapons for the Russians and for the Venezuelans. The Iranian regime has helped prop up the Cuban communist dictatorship. They provided oil to the North Koreans and to the Chinese. The collapse of the Ayatollahs would gut this axis that is growing this axis of evil that is growing of Russia, China, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, Iran. Iran is a piggy bank for many of them. Getting rid of the Ayatollahs would be great for world peace. It's just very interesting to me to see progressives, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, suddenly deciding to side with the Iranian regime, or at least to not believe the protesters. The people who were all bought in on the genocide in Gaza that wasn't, and the starvation of the people of Gaza that wasn't, are completely dismissive of the data in Iran, in large part because the President of the United States is voicing his sympathies with the people of Iran. I do find that fascinating. Now, Carrie Lake is becoming a problem in this. Carrie Lake was put in charge of the Voice of America. When I was a kid growing up overseas, I had a large Magnavox radio my parents bought me from a Sears and Roebuck catalog. It was the thing I wanted for Christmas. I think my dad still uses it. But you could get long-wave and shortwave radio, and I would listen to the BBC and Canadian Broadcasting, and I would listen to the Voice of America overseas. And the Voice of America overseas, it's different. Voice of America inside the United States isn't allowed to serve as a propaganda entity for the United States, so it serves as a propaganda entity for the left. The Voice of America overseas actually is a very pro-America network. People in this country don't understand that the Voice of America overseas is different from the Voice of America here because of government rules, but overseas they broadcast in Farsi, messages of support to the Iranian people. But Carrie Lake is refusing to allow access to the bandwidth and the frequencies for the Voice of America to get messages to the Iranian people. The president has tweeted, "Help is on the way," ordering or asking the protesters to save the names of the killers and abusers and take over your institutions. And that message isn't getting into Iran via the Voice of America because Carrie Lake is blocking the signal. It's ironic. The Iranian leadership and the Iranian regime is blocking Starlink inside Iran and blocking cell service and blocking internet service. You can't block radio service, but Carrie Lake is blocking the radio service. Carrie Lake wants the VOA shut down. The VOA, the Voice of America overseas, is indispensable for a lot of resistance movements around the world. When I was a kid, the VOA would broadcast into Eastern Europe to encourage the free marketeers and the people oppressed by communists. They have long broadcast into Iran, Farsi language, pro-America takes, and the truth, by the way, because the Iranian regime doesn't give it. They broadcasted into Southeast Asia and into China as well. Chinese language media. The Voice of America is actually a pretty indispensable system that the United States has to spread its message in ways regimes can't block, and Carrie Lake is the one standing in the way of this. It's wild to watch. There are hard decisions that are going to have to be made along the way. Do we reopen Voice of America? Should be an easy decision, but hard decisions are where to target. Here's the problem. What's happening with the Iranian regime right now, it's not just the military, it's the secret police in Iran, and they are embedded within buildings inside urban areas. If you blow them up, you risk killing citizens. How do we take military action? The president has asked the Pentagon to draw up plans. The president is now saying help is on the way. It will not surprise me if within the next 24 to 48 hours we start hearing about explosions happening in Iran designed to undermine the regime. CBS News, you should note, just out hitting the wires, saying that best estimates right now are a minimum of 12,000 people having been killed and now upwards of 20,000 having been killed. Good for Barry Weiss for getting this out there. Phone lines are coming back online with calls from inside the Islamic Republic. There appears to have been a hack to get the phone services back online, and people from inside the regime are calling outside for help, talking about the massive piles of bodies as the regime has opened fire on the resistance supporters. And for those of you standing up to ICE, for those of you in Hollywood standing on the stage claiming we're in a dictatorship, I want you to look at what's happening in Iran and compare it to the United States. And if you're not brain dead, if you're not mentally disturbed, you should understand that's what a dictatorship is, not here. You may not like the president. You may want to use Rachel Good, the one person killed by ICE, as an example of we're just like the Iranians. Tucker Carlson's brother went on a show and claimed we're just like the Iranians or the North Koreans. No, we're not. And the fact that you can say these things and live is just proof that we're not as bad as you think we are. The Iranian regime is that bad, and they should be ousted, and God bless the president if he intends to oust them. Hello there, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. So there's a very interesting story out. It turns out, well, let me back up. J.D. Vance mocked some journalists back in 2024 over the Havana Syndrome and the allegations that it was a directed energy weapon that was developed by the Russians. And Vance says it feels like a lot of journalists have lost their mind. Have you guys heard that Putler, working with Trump and the saucer people, has started attacking with invisible lasers and kind of mocked the story? That was in 2024. Well. It turns out, yes, in fact, there is a device, and the United States has gotten its hands on the device, and it is a Russian-made device. The Defense Department has spent more than a year testing a device purchased in an undercover operation some investigators think could be the cause of Havana Syndrome. A division of the Department of Homeland Security Investigations purchased the device for millions of dollars in the waning days of the Biden administration using Department of Defense numbers. They paid 8 figures for the device. It's still being studied. There is still some skepticism, but it is looking more and more likely it can exactly produce the symptoms. Notably, there are Venezuelans who were on the ground during the attack who say that the Americans fired a device at them that exactly identically mimicked what we call Havana Syndrome, causing nosebleeds and disorientation and nausea and causing people to collapse. The story is developing. Swiss America is warning people about what is developing out there right now. Gold is continuing to go up. The bond market is now increasing. There seems to be a level of instability out there in the markets, in the bond markets, in precious metals. Swiss America has been warning people about a secret war on cash. They've been the nation's trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years, including with me, and they would like to send you their free report. It's called The Secret War on Cash. It includes the government's war on crypto behind the scenes. What you need to do is just call or text my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 800-289-2646. All that war on cash does include digital forms of currency. It is spreading. The government really wants to oversee your spending and purchases and push you away from precious metals, cash, crypto, things like that. Get the report completely free. Takes less than 15 minutes to read. 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. That's SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Message and data rates may apply. Greetings. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, as always, if you text Eric, ERICK, to 33777, we will get you the links to everything, the show notes, the live stream, the 4 Things to Know in the Afternoon podcast, lots of stuff. By the way, I would be remiss if I didn't note Scott Adams has died of cancer at 68. He was the creator of, drawer of, author of Dilbert. Has become a figure within the MAGA world, a luminary and intellectual for Trump supporters. He has passed away at 68, battled cancer towards the end of his life, converted to Christianity, and passed away today. Prayers for his family. I occasionally, I got to do this on occasion. Wait. Important. You know what? I'm realizing I got breadcrumbs all over the camera. Program directors, a number of you, we're going to be reaching out. I know down in Florida, Missouri and Oklahoma. We're going to start up our station tours again, and looking forward to coming. We'd love to work with you to come, but we want to come one way or the other. So just Charlie will be in touch. And for all of you, we want to come hang out with you in person wherever you are, not just be a voice on the radio. So stay tuned for details as we make this happen. There is, on occasion, I feel compelled to have a chat with you guys on the way other people see stuff. One of the things I enjoy doing is I have this very firm belief that we should understand the other side. Because if we understand the other side, we have the opportunity to make persuasive arguments to convince them to come to our side. Now, there is in post-liberal America, conservative thought, there is a German philosopher named Carl Schmitt. He was a Nazi. You do need to understand he was a Nazi who ultimately rejected Christianity, who believed the entire world can be divided between friends and enemies. And the job, he essentially argues over time, is to give up trying to convert and instead conquer and defeat. If you're in Nazi Germany, that may be a way you can pursue life, but in this country, there's no such thing as permanence in politics. And it's far easier to persuade than it is to conquer and defeat. And to persuade, you have to know what the other side believes. And I want to posit something to all of you. I want to suggest something that I think almost every single person here, except the most diehard partisans, is going to agree with. I think Americans would really like some normalcy back. I think Americans want some normalcy. I think Americans, they got tired of the Democrats and the wackadoo left advocating transgenderism and claiming the border was secure even though it was being overrun with illegal aliens, insisting there was nothing wrong with Joe Biden when everyone could see for themselves, gaslighting Americans. I think Americans got really tired of that. They didn't particularly care for Donald Trump, but they said, you know what? We'd rather go with this guy. We remember when he was president and the economy was good, and while he was nuts, the rest of the world wasn't. So they put Donald Trump back in power. And now the president of the United States of America is openly talking about the military trying to conquer Greenland. He is relying on Bill Pulte to criminally charge and investigate Jerome Powell. And he just doesn't let up. There are growing signs that the American people despise the Democrats, but are totally willing to let them take back the House and Senate just to restrain Donald Trump. That's a problem for us because you and I know the Democrats are still bat crap crazy. They can put on a good show for the low information voters who get their news from ABC, CBS, and NBC, but they're still nuts. We need the president to be less nuts, and that's probably not going to happen. And so I do think the White House has some degree of a strategy of keep pushing the buttons of the left and cause them to explode into insanity, and people will realize the left is nuts and they can't be given power back. The problem here is how exhausting it is for so many Americans. I got to tell you, we're not yet a full year into Donald Trump's presidency. We've still got a few more days before his first year's over, and I'm tired of even talking about it. Every story is about Donald Trump. Either the media makes it about him or he makes it about himself, and it gets exhausting. And I want you, now listen, I got to start here. You got to be a big boy and a big girl here. Put on your big boy pants here. Listen to me. I am about to say something that is not my view. Don't at me, don't hate me, don't attack me for telling you this. I'm trying to get you to understand the view of another segment of Americans. Americans are less and less likely to understand and appreciate each other these days. I've already told you there's this growing trend now where the people who hate Trump are becoming the least intolerant of other opinions. It used to be the Trump supporters, and now it's the people who hate Trump are the most intolerant of other opinions. But I do need you to understand an opinion that's not mine. I'm not endorsing it. So don't hate me for telling you the truth. There is a large segment of this population that believes Donald Trump is a bully, and they interpret everything from this administration as part of the bullying campaign. As a result, there are people who fully support deporting illegal immigrants, but they see ICE on the streets of these cities as bullying. And they see what happened to Rachel Good as a tragic outcome of that bullying. And they don't want to be bullied, and they don't like bullies. Now, I would argue the reason ICE is on the streets in these states and cities is because they've set themselves up as sanctuary states and cities and are trying to protect illegal immigrants, even against their own citizenry, from the reach of the United States government, which does have the power to deport them. And it's a stupid, stupid thing that they're doing. And ICE would not be in these cities if they just cooperated with deportations. They brought this on themselves. That's my view. But I do understand there are people who really do think the president is just a bullying tyrant, and they're really tired of the nonstop, we got to invade Greenland. Greenland should be ours. They're tired of Stephen Miller going on TV and saying no one can argue that Greenland doesn't belong to us. And they're tired of the president's constant tirades. They're tired of his tweets. Just side note, I'm on social media a lot. It's my job. I hate it. Don't like being there. You will notice how very often I don't reply to people. I'm just tweeting things out. The president had something like a 300 tweet tirade on Christmas. Overnight. Y'all, it is my experience. It may not be yours, but it is mine, that when Cat Turd or Donald Trump are on Twitter that much, they're lonely. If I were on Twitter on a massive tirade at 3 o'clock in the morning, my wife would run an intervention on me. Not only would my wife run an intervention on me, my wife would throw me out of the bedroom. And I have a distinct suspicion that the president and the first lady might not sleep in the same bedroom, because if I was up at 3 a.m. banging away on my phone in a tirade, she would shut me up and make me go to sleep. And also, the president is surrounded by a bunch of highly online people. We have new reports on the Pulte situation. Let me just read you some of this. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent spent months laying the groundwork for a smooth transition of the Federal Reserve that wouldn't rattle markets. That plan is now in disarray. The Justice Department's criminal investigation into whether Fed Chair Jerome Powell misled Congress about renovations of the Fed headquarters and allegations over who leaked the news has the White House in damage control mode. The inquiry, which blindsided many White House aides, is renewing fears over the future of the central bank's independence and offering fresh fodder to concerned Republicans, many of whom will be needed to confirm the next Fed chair in the Senate. Privately, some White House officials see the episode as radioactive, with aides and allies eager to distance themselves from a probe they believe could do more damage to the White House than to the Federal Reserve. Notably, people are pointing to Bill Pulte. The episode has some officials and allies calling for the ouster of Bill Pulte, the Federal Housing Finance Agency director. They suspect Pulte is behind the latest inquiry, and many blame him for some of the administration's most outlandish economic policy messaging, including Trump's social media post proposing a 50-year mortgage, which led to swift backlash. Bessent also once threatened to punch Pulte in the face at an event attended by dozens of people. The president has already had his doubts about Pulte, and if this doesn't push him over the edge, I don't know what will, the first person familiar with the matter said. Trump needs to save himself and the country from Bill Pulte. However, the White House is defending him, and he is friends with Donald Trump Jr. Pulte, who spent last year lambasting Powell on social media and on television, recently pitched Trump on ousting Powell, going so far as to bring wanted posters of the Fed chair along with him to Mar-a-Lago, according to three people familiar with the matter. A fourth person familiar said the White House is unhappy that the story about Pulte being the investigator got out, and they're blaming Pulte for leaking that he's the instigator. Y'all, Pulte's a problem. And what is Pulte? Pulte is hyper online. He is on Twitter all the time. The president is on Twitter all the time. Much of the president's staff, they are on Twitter all the time. And these people are so busy trying to win the Twitter wars, they're not relating to the average American who's not on Twitter. You know, there are some radio shows right now spending all their time on the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk stuff. I have mentioned it a little bit, but it is not, I don't think, what you people are interested in. And some people, because it's all that's being talked about online, they are nonstop talking about it. The president got Bill Pulte, who presented wanted posters of Jerome Powell. Pulte is all online, hates Jerome Powell, gets it in the president's head, who goes on these tirades, who wants to invade Greenland, who wants to criminally investigate Powell. And here's the punchline on the Powell investigation. By tradition, when the chairman of the Federal Reserve's term is up as chairman, he leaves the Federal Reserve Board. But Jerome Powell's term as chairman may come to an end in May, but his tenure on the Federal Reserve Board continues on. Because he's under criminal investigation for his actions as Federal Reserve Chairman, the Federal Reserve will cover the costs of the investigation if he's still on the board. So Bill Pulte's advice to the president that now got pushed by the U.S. Attorney's Office will now prevent the president from getting to add 2 picks to the Federal Reserve Board. It's just dumb. And most Americans are scratching their head over this stuff. And my advice to the White House, look, I know you can't control the president. I know you can't. You've tried. You've given up. You're not going to take his phone away. But you got to convince him for the sake of his agenda. Just calm down. Just be normal. And stop listening to the people who are hyper online because they're not the normal ones. Just unplug for a little bit. Be seen and not heard. Every time the president steps away from social media for a prolonged period of time and steps away from the microphone, his popularity goes up. I can show you every blip in increase of the president's popularity, and 7 out of 10 times it's he stepped away from social media and the microphone for a few days, and people could forget about him. And they like his policies. They don't want to live in existential terror that we're about to invade Greenland and have our poor soldiers step on all the Lego bricks the Danes are land mining around the island. They don't want to see the bond markets crater and the fight with the Federal Reserve, and they know it's all political, and they don't like what they view as high-handedness and abuse of power. They're tired of this stuff. They just want normalcy. And if the Democrats portray themselves as sane, you know and I know there are a lot of stupid people who vote. And they're going to be convinced that the Democrats have seen the error of their ways and have become normal, and they haven't. They've just pretended to be normal to get their vote, and they'll go back to being back crap crazy the moment they get in power. But as long as they're looking more normal than the president and his team, a lot of low information voters are going to say, hey, I'm so tired of the drama and the insanity, I think I'm going to go vote for them. It would be a very bad thing next year. So, Mr. President, just please stay off social media, calm down, stop trying to invade Greenland, back the dogs off Powell, and wait him out a few more months. And let's just get some normalcy here, led by you, not the Democrats. This hour of the program is brought to you by Van Allen Golf, and I love Van Allen Golf, and you will too. You should get your hands on one of their new putters. Check them out at vanallengolf.com. Van Allen, A-L-L-E-N, vanallengolf.com. You can check them out on Instagram as well at Van Allen Golf. Man, the pictures of the golf, man, the putter is amazing. Even my wife held this putter and was like, I can tell this is impressive. My wife hates golf, and even she could tell. Yes, it is. Y'all, you got to go to vanallengolf.com or just text the word golf to 33777. Bill Clinton and his wife had been subpoenaed to the House to testify about Jeffrey Epstein. They have declined to go, setting up a legal standoff with the former president over this. Both sides continue to drag this out. The Wall Street Journal is reporting the president has gotten very unhappy with Pam Bondi. The problem is he wants particular outcomes which good lawyers can't give. Good lawyers really do have to be procedural in how things are done. And Pam Bondi, I don't think she's been a very good attorney general, but she is very procedural in that regard, and she was a good lawyer. And you can't guarantee outcomes to presidents when you're the attorney general. And she seems to know it. But, man, the president really, really wants transactional outcomes from the DOJ, and pushing to get them is just going to get him in trouble with the courts, I'm afraid. But, yeah, Pam Bondi probably needs to go. The Epstein stuff, they just did a terrible job handling the Epstein stuff, and it's still ongoing with over 1 million documents still outstanding. Y'all, I was standing in my shower last night thinking, how do I explain to you how awesome the Renai tankless hot water heater was? And it was 35 degrees outside. My daughter, rather, not my wife. My wife is at Bible study. My daughter was in the shower upstairs. I was taking a shower downstairs, and neither of us ran out of hot water, and we had water pressure in both showers. Phenomenal. My son was in the hot tub. I was in the shower, just standing there. Had a beer in the shower. It's a wonderful therapeutic thing I occasionally embrace. And I just stood in the hot water. It was glorious. And it never ran out because I have a Renai tankless water heater. You can ditch your tank and get a tankless water heater from Renai. Find out more at talkingtankless.com. Talkingtankless.com from Renai. Their tankless water heaters, our power bill went down. We never run out of hot water. My kids don't fight over the hot water. It is the greatest thing. They're made in the USA, very reasonably priced. TalkingTankless.com. Get a Renai tankless water heater. You will thank me later because you'll love it.